I am the last of the Wolfgang.
But also, I discovered that you actually studied here at the Royal College of Music.
I did. In fact, I don't recognise anything here. It's changed so enormously since I was here in 1942.
Yeah, and you did. My first question I want to put it. So, what was it like when you were here in 1942?
Oh, well, amateurish, I think, is the right word. Yes.
Yeah, because you said that you actually received a scholarship to study here at the Royal College.
It cost £50 a year, in which you had tuition on the cello, the piano, and harmony each week, and the year consisted of some, I don't know, hundreds of weeks. So.
And you were only 15.
50. Oh, yeah.
15.
Yeah.
And
don't let's.
And you had cello lessons from Ivor James. Was he all right?
No.
No.
He wasn't. No. He was a nice man. He was a very musical man, but he wasn't a very good teacher.
Then you said you actually had also piano lessons here.
Yeah.
With Harry Stubbs. What was he like?
Well, I had the technique of going to the cinema the night before and worrying, but all I had to do was to mention what was his name, the name of the registrar.
Oh yes, you said Anson.
Anson.
Yeah.
His name was Anson. All I had to do was mention Anson and everything would be all right. In fact, when I mentioned the name Anson, he talked for 20 minutes, non-stop, about Anson, and then he said, oh, well, we seem to have lost our keep practicing.
Actually, before they started performing, they actually spent a whole year practicing. Actually,
it's interesting. The first concert, we were the Brainin Quartet, and the two middle strings said, no, we will not have it. So we had 2 or 3 concerts as the London-Vienna string quartet, and people said it sounded like a railway timetable. And so, just before the first concert, Siggy came up with the idea of Amadeus. And fortunately, we took it. We agreed.
Very well. The next question I have, the quartet went to Germany very shortly after the end of the war, and what was it like for you and your German-speaking colleagues? And I know you missed some of that tour, but what was it like to go to Germany that early after the war?
Well, my father said you shouldn't go to Germany, but I thought if the other 3 could go to Germany, who was I to say no? So that was the reason we went to Germany. Is that you must remember that at that time we'd been at war for how many years? 5. I don't know.
Yeah, 5, 6 years. Yeah. And do you remember the reception you got in Germany?
Oh yes, very good reception.
Good. You said you learned German because of your colleagues. I was wondering if you ever rehearsed in German.
No, we never. We always played in English.
Well, what about when you didn't play?
Well, I think Norbert used to, when he was saying something very secretive, he would go into German. It was interesting, yeah.
But then you learned it because you didn't want him to just get away with that.
I felt very, very much out of it at the beginning, but slowly I learned. Yeah.
That's great. And were there any jokes in German?
I suppose there were, but I can't remember.
There's something. I think you mentioned something about spring in the air.
Oh yes, the joke went two continentals. One says to the other, "It's lovely weather," and the other says, "It's lovely weather." He says, "It's spring in the air." He says, "Why should I?" And there's something. I mean, it's very interesting about the identities of émigrés. We've had a great deal of discussions already in this symposium, but there's something about we British we should stick together. Is that what they used to say? We British, we should stick together.
Yeah,
yeah.
That was a pretty good German accent. That, or it's fair to say Austrian.
Yeah, Austrian accent.
If I had asked your Viennese colleagues if they thought of themselves as Austrian or British or Jewish or cosmopolitan, or what might they have said?
Nobody did, but I don't know what they would have answered.
Yeah. I mean, they were all of those things, I guess.
Yes.
And then there's something about you're not actually such an Englishman yourself.
Well, my mother was born in Ukraine, but she came to England when she was 6 months old, and all 4 grandparents were born in Ukraine.
All 4 of them.
Yeah.
So there's not a drop of English blood in you.
Probably
but
not.
you've done pretty well with being regarded the only English member of the string quartet. Yeah, that's very, very, very interesting. We often hear that it was very hard after the war for composers to write tonal music, and I mean, from what I read, the Amadeus really was your core repertoire was Beethoven, Schubert, and all the great classical composers. And I heard that you were accused of being too old-fashioned in your choice of repertoire and all that.
Well, I don't know. I remember that.
Do you? Was there any conscious decision to play only those pieces, or is there any? Yeah, what remember?
Well, I when you mention it, I can easily imagine that the 4 of us would have said we only play music which we subscribe to, and we obviously would have subscribed to the great classics.
And what contemporary or more modern?
He is here. We played his quartet. Joe Horowitz.
Joe Horowitz, yeah. Indeed, yes. Yes. So you premiered that. The 5th string quartet, which is dedicated to Ernst Gombrich.
Yes, that's right.
Which we're going to hear that in the concert tonight. I'm afraid it's not likely that it's going to be quite the same as the Amadeus string quartet, although the students who've been working on it are doing very well. So it's. Did you enjoy Schoenberg, for example? Did you play any Schoenberg?
No, I can't remember playing Schoenberg. I mean, I've played Verklärte Nacht.
Verklärte Nacht.
Yes, I have played that, but that wasn't with the quartet.
Yeah. What about Benjamin Britten?
Yes, he wrote his last piece for us, and I am surprised when I hear young players that they don't ask us, or ask me. I'm the only person alive who actually played it to the composer, who wrote in the last movement, he wrote slow. So we played slow. He said he was pushing all the time, so he changed the marking to con moto. But I'm surprised that they don't ask me.
Well, they bloody well should.
You know, what was very interesting was that one rehearsal we disagreed about the way to play a certain passage. I can't remember what it was. And I was very interested to know how this would resolve itself. And do you know, it resolved itself by perfection. It's strange, the argument which we had was advantaged by the actual performance.
So it actually is good to have an argument.
Oh, it is, yes. Argue about music, yes.
A couple of words about each of those three colleagues that you've worked with. I mean, just can you characterize Norbert to start with?
Well, I think Norbert Brainin was a genius, and I bow to nobody who says he wasn't. He had some quality which you can only call genius. And the others, Siggy, I can never remember saying one word at all. Peter Schidloff was extraordinarily talented. So but Norbert's genius was extraordinary.
So Siegmund Nissel was very, very quiet during the rehearsal.
He was very quiet, but I'm told he was very witty and very humorous to other people.
Yeah, okay. Right. He was married.
Yeah.
Did his wife know anything about him?
I can't answer that.
And Peter Schidloff, I mean...
his name was Hans, but he was called Hans Peter. And so he dropped the Hans and he became Peter.
Yeah. Do you know, was there a particular reason for that?
Well, in England it was better to be called Peter.
Yes, excuse my ignorance, but yes, I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's yes. And his parents were killed during the Holocaust.
They were murdered. By the Germans.
Yeah.
And do you know, the whole time that I knew him, which was many, many years, 45 years, he never once talked about his parents. And I think if my parents had been murdered, I think I would have talked about them. But and his daughter came by this morning, and she said it was a forbidden topic.
One of the things I'd just like to bounce off, Martin, if I may, you were talking about the repertoire. My impression when I knew you all and worked with you all was that by and large you performed what people paid you to perform, and they wanted Schubert, Mozart and Haydn.
Yeah.
But you played Bartok, you played Prior-Rainier, you played Frankel, you did go beyond that classical repertoire as well, but you weren't that often asked to include it in your concert.
Yes,
it's
I
a
mean,
marketplace, and you played what
we didn't dictate the performances. What we told the people, these are the pieces we are playing.
That's right, and they wanted things that should. The other thing was just a word in defence of Ziggy and your colleagues. I mean, I got the impression, I'd be very curious to know your thoughts in retrospect, you were four very different characters. Norbert was a genius, he shot from the hip, he would overstate, he was childish in a way. Peter was an elegant gentleman, you were Martin, as ever. Elegant, beautiful, played one bit. And Ziggy was very quiet, particularly in rehearsal. But he would quietly and with huge subtlety and intelligence adjudicate between you all, manage you in such a way that perhaps you didn't fully realise you were being managed. And he was witty, he was intelligent, his wife was a considerable intellectual, but he wasn't a person to throw his weight around, and he there was a psychological interdependence between you all, with Ziggy being the kind of quiet referee, was an impression I had. Very curious to know what you thought, Martin.
Well, that's interesting. I found it very interesting. I never knew that he was so influential.